quality versus quantity. There's a lot of professionals out there saying that I own 50, 100, 200, 300 properties, and they may well have, and I'm not debating or saying that there is any intention of a lie that they're making, but it comes with a lot of contingent liabilities. I'd rather have 10 great assets as opposed to 300 average quality assets because there's cost of maintaining a property portfolio. For everybody that's listening, when you're wanting to build a property portfolio and you think that your investment property will dilapidate the same as your own home, you've got it all wrong. I've owned my own home now. I've owned 3 homes, which we've called and been lucky enough to call our principal place of residence. Yep. And I can tell you now, I used to get angry. I used to feel frustrated as why my investment property, where I just spent a lot of money fixing it, 2 months later it's coming up and riddled with issues. Where my own home, it's the same age as that investment property for argument's sake, and it is nowhere near or has nowhere near the level of issues. So I think that's important to understand the quality versus quantity debate. Yep. Second noise, that's out there at the moment is this rent investment strategy. Renting versus buying your own home, and we'll touch upon that as well. And then I think the third one is utilising residential property as a tool for retirement. What type of tool it is from a retirement perspective. And again, you have your financial planners that will weigh into it, people with experience, accountants, you might have other buyers agents, property advocates, specialists, wide range of different people have their different debates. Yep. But we'll start with, I think the first one, it's around quality versus quantity. Quality is always going to trump quantity no matter what it is. Quantity comes with additional council rates, water rates, contingent liability. Now, for everybody out there, a contingent liability is a liability that has not occurred yet, but will occur very soon. So if you've got a 1960s weatherboard house and you haven't changed the gutters or painted, the external of the property, you're up for a $30,000, $40,000 bill coming up very soon, whether it's fixing the roof, getting all the gutters redone, painting, fixing the window sills, because wood doesn't last forever. You've got to make sure you maintain it. So you've got to factor that in. If you've got 40 or 50 or 10 or 12 of these type of houses, especially the older ones, they will require substantial maintenance at some stage. And that substantial maintenance is not just done once in the property's lifetime, it's done many times. So where you're buying it, at what stage you're buying it, at what condition you're buying it, will dictate and determine the level of cost you need to spend. Yep. What you need to factor in is that if it's going to cost you 40, 50, 60 grand every 10 or 15 years to do this, and you're making 10 grand a year passive income, well, you've got to ring fence about 5, 6 grand of that every year to go towards that major cost. Yep. In 10 or 15 years' time. Yep. So that's something to consider. And that's why I always, from my point of view, now touching back on point number 3, I look at residential property as a tool to gain wealth.
To get started.
A tool to gain wealth. Now, wealth isn't necessarily cash flow. Wealth could be balance sheet. Wealth could be a value. Wealth could be maybe what you're worth as far as what you've just sold. At some stage or another, though, you need to, move wealth to a P&L, to your bank account, because, you see a lot of these billionaires, your Bezoses and your Elon Musks and your Gates of the world worth billions of dollars. But I guarantee if you went into their bank account, there's not billions of dollars worth of bank account. A lot of their wealth is in paper value, which is tied to the goodwill of their companies or their asset or property portfolio, for argument's sake, or share portfolio. So that's something to consider, and it's when to move that wealth from paper to now the P&L. And we've spoken about that in a prior podcast together as well. And I think that's still what's lacking. It's that understanding of that pivot, when to let it occur, and it's knowing and being in tune with your property portfolio. You need to know what level of costs are coming up. You need to know what exit strategy you need to be adopting at that particular time. And sometimes if you don't get it right, it does mean a huge amount of cost just to sell your property, not to gain extra value, but just to sell it. Because you and I often talk about it, walk into a property as a buyer's agent and me as just an investor. I look at a brand new roof. I'm not saying that, I'm going to spend $30,000 extra because it's got a brand new roof. I'll just say it's a tick. I don't need to do that roof for the next 25 years. It will help sell your property quicker, but it's not going to add extra value.
No.
What will add extra value is the emotive flowing juices that, a kitchen or a new bathroom or fresh smelling paint, herringbone floors. They're the things that really create the emotive juices in people to say, I'm going to pay extra. And the type of property you buy, I always advise people all the time, and that's just me as an investor, now not as an accountant or I'm not a financial advisor, but just as a general investor, your owner-occupiers will pay more for a property. If your property is in a very investment-grade market, aimed at purely only investors, then you will get investment grade offers. Nothing wrong with that. But it's the people that want to buy that home to live in because it's the best street, it's near the new schools, it's got the best kitchen. They will pay, you know, $50,000 or $100,000 more because it's an owner-occupied market, and that might be the owner-occupied value. So you also need to make sure that what type of property you're buying and selling. You know, a lot of people want to sell with a tenant in there. Nothing wrong with that when you're selling an investment grade property. But when you're selling a owner-occupied grade property, you may not want a tenant in there.
No.
You may need to get that person out and sell it as vacant possession, and that's where, you know, mum and dad can come in and buy it and move into it straight away.
That's a fantastic point. And knowing what market you're selling to at the time of that market is very important.
Yeah, because you'll see in most cases, if you've got a huge buyer pool that's coming into a certain area that are all, say, investor buyer pools, and we've seen that in the East Coast investment markets moving into the West Coast or even Middle Australia, you need that next wave of investors to come in and pay more than what those initial investors did. And if they're not, and if that next wave hasn't come, well, then your investors will tend to be left holding the bag, unfortunately, with no goodies in it. So you've got to be very conscious of what's happening around you. You know, we've got movements in the economy. We've seen for the RBA meeting in the month of July, Michelle Bullock has left the rates on hold, and, you know, she's commenting and discussing about points that are happening around tariffs. Recently, Donald Trump's talked about tariffs relating to our mines and minerals, and also tariffs relating to our pharmaceuticals.
Copper through the roof.
Copper through the roof. He wants it now in America, so he's going to, you know, potentially tariff anywhere between 40 to 50%. Pharmaceuticals being, you know, exported to America from Australia, there's a 200% tariff attached to it. So she's very mindful of that. At the same time, she's very mindful of, you know, what's happening with our Australian dollar. If she cuts the rate too much, our Australian dollar might become weaker. All of a sudden, we're now importing inflation because everything we import into the country becomes expensive. Now, what's that got to do with property? A hell of a lot. There's a lot of things to consider when you're buying in a market. Who are the people buying in the market? When you're selling in the market, who are the people buying the property you're willing to sell?
And what type of asset you're buying?
What type of asset are you buying? Are you buying an asset, for argument's sake, that's heavily linked to, you know, a mining town? Are you buying an asset that's heavily linked to selling of pharmaceuticals, and that whole town produces maybe, you know, the drugs that go to cure, you know, some type of illness? So it's very conscious of your surroundings. And that's why I always say to people, you've really got to make sure you understand, well, what you're getting into it for, what's your exit around it. If you are looking at wanting to utilize that property for cash flow, is it actually going to give you any cash flow? Which leads you into the next point and topic of debate, which is the rentvestment versus owner-occupied. And I'm always telling clients, you know, there's got to be the numbers that are done between it. If you're looking to rentvest, that's not a problem. You've got to make sure that what you're paying in rent is significantly lower than what the cost would be to own. And if you're looking to own, well, you need to make sure that the costs of owning aren't significantly higher than the cost of renting. Typically speaking, I look around the beautiful area of the Gold Coast, and there's some beautiful canals and waterfront or canal front property that are worth $10 and $15 million, and they're stunning places. But to rent that at maybe, say, $5,000, $6,000 a week. Now, as an accountant, I would die paying $5,000, $6,000 a week rent. I would be horrified in doing it. But if I was to do it, to get into and live in comfortably a $10 or $14 million home, it's the best decision. Because the repayments on that could be, you know, $15,000 a week. As opposed to...
But if you're going to do that, you want to make sure that you've got a really good portfolio. Your business is doing whatever you're doing is set up in the background before you start to go pay.
Don't go spending.
Just because you see value in the one thing, don't pay, you know, the entirety of your $200,000 wage towards a rent.
You've got to have that opportunity there. You've got to make sure that what I'm spending here and what I'm saving there, I'm investing the balance of it.